Hi, everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Titans the Day After. I'm your host, Ken Moore. Thank you for joining me a day after a big Week 11 victory against the Baltimore Ravens. We will break that game down in its entirety. We'll also look ahead to our segments the good, the bad, the concerning, and then we'll also look ahead as well to the Titans' playoff possibilities, and of course, they have that huge game next week against the Indianapolis Colts for first place in the AFC South. But first, let's break down what happened yesterday in the ball game between the Titans and Ravens. Of course, the Titans come back, win that ball game 30-24 in overtime. And before we dive deep into that, I would like to invite you guys to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and leave your comments and questions. I will be answering those throughout the broadcast and after the broadcast. Any questions that you may have about the status of the team, some injuries concerns, the playoff possibilities moving forward, or anything else regarding the NFL that happened on Sunday. There were a lot of huge games around the league, particularly in the AFC, with playoff ramifications. The Raiders lost last night to the Kansas City Chiefs. Of course, Cleveland had a nice win again against Philly. Miami with an upset loss to Denver. So a lot of teams moving around the playoff board. And of course, the Colts had a big comeback win in overtime as well against the Green Bay Packers. So we'll break all of that down, but of course, we'll start first with the Tennessee Titans and their win yesterday against the Baltimore Ravens. What a huge come from behind, confidence building victory for the Titans on yesterday, trailing 21-10 in the third quarter of that ball game. Ryan Tannehill had a big second half. The receivers, Corey Davis and A.J. Brown, both came through in the clutch for us. And of course, Derrick Henry had that huge second half and that big run in overtime to win the football game for us. So we'll talk about all of that coming up in the show. We're going to start off the Titans and how they started the game. Again, they get a nice opening drive, just like we did against Indy last week to go up 7-zip. But then the offense stalls. Arthur Smith starts with a weird kind of game plan thereafter. Seems like his opening scripts have been very well, but the remainder of the first half was very, very shaky, exactly the way it was against the Colts. Take the second drive of the ball game. Titans up 7-zip, and we come out with two nice running plays to Derrick Henry. He picks up 8 yards on consecutive carries. And then on first and 10 from around the 40-yard line, Arthur Smith calls a screenplay that goes nowhere. I'm thinking in my mind, why are you calling a screenplay when you've just had two successful running plays? You typically only call a screenplay when it's third and long, or if the defense is getting a lot of pressure on your quarterback and you want to slow down the pass rush. That's when you would go to a screenplay. But he goes to a screenplay on first and 10 after he's just had two very successful running plays to Derrick Henry. Again, we're running Derrick Henry successfully, but then we take the ball out of his hands. Now, if we want to go to a play action pass in that situation, I can get that. Maybe the linebackers are starting to cheat up. Maybe the safeties are starting to cheat up. But if not, you just continue running the football and force the defense to stop us. So, some very curious play calling from Arthur Smith there. Luckily, he did get it together in the second half. He and Tannehill were able to get on the same page and bail us out, and we were able to come back and get a huge victory. Now, one thing I do want to give the Titans coaching staff credit for was the fourth down fake punt. That was a huge risk, but it was definitely a risk worth the reward as Logan Woodside threw his first pass as a Titan and completed it to Darius Jennings along that right sideline for the first down. That was a tight catch, a great catch by Jennings, who we known has had questionable hands in the past. And that's the reason why he hasn't been able to get many reps at wide receiver. He's been primarily a special teams player, but that was a good throw from Woodside. That was an excellent catch by Jennings along the sideline to keep that drive alive and help us get back in the ball game. So an excellent job there. Oh, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the excellent job that our special teams did this week. Trevor Daniels, the punter, two successful kicks, had a 46-yard average. Only one of the kicks was returned for 7 yards. So a great job by our punt protection team. A great job by Trevor Daniel not to get his punt block and not to shank a punt. And hopefully this will be the last time until Brett Kern returns that we have to talk about the punting unit. So hopefully we won't have to discuss any type of punting scenarios anymore this season. And of course, Stephen Gostkowski also had a great game as he was perfect on extra points, 3 for 3, also 3 for 3 on field goals. I can tell you, along with the rest of you, I was very happy that Derrick Henry ran it into the end zone in overtime. I was hoping that it would not come down to trusting Stephen Gostkowski in a game-winning situation once again. Obviously, he blew the game at Pittsburgh. He did win a couple of games for us early in the season, but I did not want to see it come down to the legs of Stephen Gostkowski. But an excellent job overall by the special teams on yesterday, the punting situation, the fake punt as well, along with Gostkowski being perfect on his extra points and his field goals. So let's deep dive into the good, the bad, the concerning from yesterday's game. And for me, the good had to come from the offense. They did a great job, particularly in that second half. And we'll pull it up here so you guys can take a look at exactly what I'm talking about. And they did an excellent job. The offense getting everything involved, and Ryan Tannehill being able to get back to his outstanding performance. That's not the one we want right there. This is the one we want right here. The good. Tannehill, outstanding yesterday in the second half. In the first half, I was tweeting about how Tannehill did not look good. He missed a couple of third down throws. He missed one to Corey Davis. He missed one to A.J. Brown as he was really struggling. But in the second half, he did a great job. 22 of 31 overall for the game, 259 yards, a pair of touchdowns, and the number that was outstanding, he was 91% against the blitz. The Ravens blitzed us yesterday more than any team in the league had done so. And the reason why? Because we had a lot of backup offensive linemen in the ball game. And we have to give a shout out to Brewer, the backup left guard, who also did a great job yesterday. His first ever start. And in addition to that, this is a kid who was a 2-star athlete out of high school up in North Texas, went to tiny Texas State College, and now has earned a position on this football team. And he helped protect Ryan Tannehill on yesterday. But also, the receivers came up big for us. Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. No catches for either of these guys in the first half. And then the second half, they did an outstanding job. Corey, 5 catches, 113 yards, 22 yards per reception. He was huge in that overtime. And A.J. Brown, huge as well. 4 catches, 62 yards, a couple of big catches on that last drive in the fourth quarter that gave us the lead temporarily. And then, of course, he had that strong run for the touchdown. Oh, yeah. And the 7BT, that is broken tackles. That's how many broken tackles that A.J. Brown caused yesterday from that Baltimore Ravens defense. So a great job overall from the offense yesterday, particularly in the second half. Tannehill, Corey Brown, Corey Davis, AJ Brown, and of course Derrick Henry had a big second half as well. So a shout out to all of those guys. They did a great job getting us back in the ball game. And that is what it's going to take from this offense the remainder of the season. They're going to have to lead this team. They're going to have to be the bell cow to help this defense out. We're going to have to average 30 plus points per game, probably the rest of the season, with all the injuries that have occurred on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively. It's just been a struggle for the Titans. That's why you hated to lose those games that we really should have won against Cincinnati, against Indy last week. But we are where we are right now. We are tied for first place. So we're still in an excellent position to be where we want to be moving forward. Now, we're also going to look at the bad from yesterday. And that was quite concerning. And that's what we were looking at earlier with Jayon Brown. And he goes down in a terrible, terrible play by one of the offensive linemen for the Baltimore Ravens that actually clipped Jalen, called him to fall down. He put his arm out to brace himself. And a message for young kids: if you're playing football, if you're riding your bike, whatever you're doing, when you're falling to the ground, try not to put your elbow and your arm down like that. Just try to bring it into your body and brace yourself so that you don't break your wrist, break your elbow, break your arm. That's what a lot of young players do. That's what a lot of kids do when they're outside and they're playing schoolyard, or if they're out riding their bike and they fall down. Try to bring those arms in close to your body. Don't try to put them down to brace yourself, because all that weight goes down to your arm. And that's how you see a lot of kids come up with injuries and a lot of professional athletes. And it is a natural reaction to put your arm down to brace yourself. But when you're in those situations, you want to try to bring your arms close to your body and then just kind of brace yourself for the fall. So just a little medical advice from Dr. Moore. I'll play Dr. Moore here on YouTube today. But this is what the Titans are going to miss from Jayon Brown, the team's leading tackler, 73 tackles. He was our best linebacker in coverage, 8 passes defended on the season. He also forced 2 fumbles, had a sack, had an interception. I mean, we are really going to miss Jayon Brown. And then you combine that with Clowney being out as well. So now half of your linebacking core is probably gone for the remainder of the season. Clowney is on IR for at least 2 more games. We don't know if he'll be back. He has the meniscus situation in his knee. So we really don't know how that's going to play out. Adoree Jackson's been out, our cornerback. He's been on IR. So that defense is really in a bad way right now defensively, and they were already struggling to begin with. So, and again, you know how the Titans play it close to the vest when it comes to releasing injury information. So we don't know what the situation is going to be with Jadeveon Clowney going forward. Is he going to be in a week-to-week situation like Adoree Jackson has been the entire season? Are we going to see Adoree Jackson this season? We have no idea. Kenny Vaccaro missed this past week's game with a concussion. Will he be back next week against the Colts? So just a lot of bad news concerning the Titans with their injury situations. And then you go to the offensive side of the ball. Sambrailo, He got hurt yesterday, the left tackle. So now we're down to Quisenberry, our third string left tackle. Isaiah Wilson, our number one pick, dressed yesterday for the first time, did not get into the game, did not play one snaps on offense or either on special teams. So you have to wonder how ready he will be to go next week. But of course, everyone on the offensive line, in my opinion, did a very good job yesterday against a tough Baltimore defense, keeping Tannehill protected. He did have the one blitz that came up the middle where he threw the interception. I think he got sacked once yesterday. But all in all, considering everything that went down, it was a great job by our offense overall to help get that victory. But you do have to be worried about the injury situation going forward. Now, we also want to look at the playoff possibilities. And that's going to be our concerning situation. As we go into this Colts game, when we began this 3-game stretch, we had a fairly healthy ball club. We had a couple of key injuries with Lawan and Adoree Jackson, but for the most part, we were fairly healthy. Now we are a very beat up team going into this game against Indy next week. And so, what we're going to do is take a look at what we introduced last week. We had our little playoff tool that allowed us to look at how the Titans can get into the playoffs. And going into the game yesterday, I believe we had a 59% chance, 58% chance of getting into the playoffs. But look what that victory did yesterday against the Ravens. Bumped us up to 80% chance to make the playoffs with 6 games to go. So now we go into the game next week against the Colts. As I told you last week, if we beat the Colts, and this was assuming we would lose to the Ravens, but if we beat the Colts, beat the Browns, beat the Jags, beat the Lions, give us a loss to the Packers, we come back and beat the Texans, put all those numbers in, that number is going to be 100% with all the votes counted. That's if we win the rest of our games and just lose to the Packers. Okay. Let's assume we lose to the Browns because, again, last week talked about losing to the Ravens, which was a conference opponent. We said if we could beat the Ravens or lose to the Ravens, maybe beat the Browns. Well, we've already beaten the Ravens. So that actually gives us still a lot of cushion. So if we beat the Colts next week, we could still lose to the Browns, still lose to the Packers, and still have a 99% chance of making the playoffs and still have a 92% chance of winning the division. The only way we could lose the division is if the Colts went undefeated the rest of the way. That's under this scenario. Okay, we beat the Colts, we lose to the Browns and Packers, we win everything else. The only way we could lose the division is if the Colts won all the rest of their ball games. All right. But now, here's what I'm concerned about that this segment is talking about. I'm concerned that we lose to the Colts next week. If we lose to the Colts next week, we'll let the simulator play itself out. Okay. We lose to the Packers. We win our other 4 games. We're still a very strong chance to make the playoffs. Now, this is not taking into account any other games. But we would make the playoffs if we win all of our games, lose to the Colts and Packers. But we would be highly unlikely to win the division. Because if you remember, or if this is your first time watching, Hosting a wild card game means you win your division. That's the only way you host a wild card game is to win your division. So we would only have a 32% chance of winning the division if we lose to the Colts, but we would still be a playoff team if we win 4 of the final 6 games. The main thing is we cannot afford to lose any other AFC conference games. Browns, Jaguars, Lions, which is a non-conference game, and the Texans. So as long as we do that, we still have a great chance to make the playoffs. So that's where we currently sit. Currently, we're at an 80% chance. If we run it through the way I think we can run it through the rest of the season, then we can really set ourselves up nicely. And if somehow, some way, we can find a way to win that game next week against the Indianapolis Colts, boys and girls, things are going to be real interesting in the AFC, with your Titans having a real solid chance of hosting a playoff game, winning the division, and possibly making another strong run to the playoffs. So again, a huge victory on yesterday for us against the Ravens. It was a victory that I did not see coming. I am very happy that once again I was wrong. It seems like when I pick the Titans to lose, they win. And when I pick the Titans to win, they lose. So when I do my preview show later in the week, I will, for superstition's sake, I'll probably be picking the Colts to win that game because on paper, when you look at it with all of our injuries going on the road, the Colts come in, I believe, as a 3 or 4 point favorite in this ball game. So it's going to be a very difficult task. I'm interested to see what you guys think, what your comments are. Once again, please subscribe to the channel. Please like it, the video, and please leave your comments. I'm always interested for any questions that you guys have. Do you think we can beat the Colts? Do you think we have another Super Bowl run in us? Or do you think the injuries are just too much for us to overcome? We've been on Jon Robinson a lot for a lot of his decision making and the players that he's brought in the offseason. But I have to give props where props are due. Mike Vrabel and his coaching staff and the entire organization has done an excellent job with our practice squad because all those guys, or at least most of them, that we've brought in and put into game situations, those guys have produced. Brewer and Sambrillo, yeah, he struggled yesterday a little bit, but Quisenberry came in and he did an excellent job. And those guys have done a nice job. When we needed to go to Deontay Foreman or McNichols in the backfield, those guys have done a good job. We got Cameron Batson involved in the ball game on that first drive yesterday. Again, Arthur Smith being very creative, coming out getting Batson involved in the offense early in a little wildcat action, getting him the ball, receiving the football a little bit. You like to see him get a little bit more involved. One thing I do not want to see Cameron Batson do anymore is bring the ball out of the end zone because he got popped a couple of times yesterday, and he was very lucky to hold on to the football on those kickoff returns. So my advice to the Titans would be if the ball is going into the end zone, just take the ball at the 25-yard line because we really haven't done too well on our kick return unit this season. Just take the ball at the 25. You avoid the possibility of a penalty backing you up inside the 20-yard line and whatnot. So I would just hope that they would have that type of game plan for kick returns going forward. But other than that, it's a Monday to celebrate the day after a Titans victory. They come out on top 30-24. Derrick Henry becomes the first player in NFL history to have 2 walk-off rushing touchdowns in overtime. So a great job by Derrick Henry, that offensive line yesterday. Great job by the coaching staff in the second half. As a lot of us were really concerned at halftime about what was unfolding. And right now, our Titans are 7-3. They're tied for first. A lot of good things to come, a lot of exciting football down the stretch. And this is all you can ask for as a fan, is for your team to be in contention when the holiday season approaches. It makes Thanksgiving a whole lot more gratifying. We have a lot to be thankful for this holiday season. We have a contending football team, and they continue to piece things together. And we just hope that they can bring it home for us next week against the Colts. So, you guys have a great Thanksgiving week. Enjoy your holiday season. We will see you this weekend with a preview show, likely on Saturday. I'll have a couple of high school football broadcasts as it's Texas high school playoff time in the state of Texas and the city of Houston. So I'll be busy with that throughout the week on Friday. And then on Saturday, I'll hope to have a preview of the Colts game for you. And then, of course, next Monday, we'll be right back here for the good, the bad, the concerning on the day after. So, once again, thank you guys for joining me. Hit the subscribe button on your way out. Pretty please. And hit the like button. And I enjoyed you once again. And believe me, leave your comments and I will answer each and every one of those comments. So, again, thank you for joining me. You guys have a great Thanksgiving week, and we'll talk to you soon. Tighten up.